What if the death of one beloved god could doom an entire world? In this third episode, we follow the tragic fall of Baldur, the unraveling of divine order, and the explosive events that ignite Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. From Loki's betrayal and punishment to the gods' final preparations for war, this episode uncovers the darkest moments in Norse mythology. Witness the rise of chaos, the vengeance of Fenrir, and the epic final duel between Thor and the world serpent. But was Baldur's death truly unavoidable? And did the gods seal their own fate by punishing Loki? The answers lie ahead. If you love powerful mythological stories, subscribe now to Best of History and Mythology, leave a like, and hit the bell so you won't miss the final chapter in this legendary saga. Baldur, the beloved son of Odin and Frigg, was the shining light of Asgard. Known for his beauty, wisdom, and kindness, Baldur was cherished by the Norse gods and foretold to be invincible. However, his death would mark the beginning of the end, casting a long shadow over the gods and signaling the inevitable approach of Ragnarok. Frigg, desperate to protect her son, extracted oaths from every creature, plant, and object in the world that they would not harm Baldur. Yet, she overlooked the seemingly harmless mistletoe. Loki, ever the trickster, learned of this and crafted a spear from the mistletoe, knowing it was the only thing that could kill Baldur. In a cruel game, Loki handed the mistletoe spear to Baldur's blind brother, Hoder, convincing him to join in the gods' playful attempts to prove Baldur's invulnerability. Unknowingly, Hoder threw the spear, striking Baldur and killing him instantly. The gods were struck with grief, as the prophecy foretold that Baldur's death would set in motion the events leading to Ragnarok. The gods attempted to retrieve Baldur from Hel, the realm of the dead ruled by Loki's daughter. They sent Hermod, one of the Aesir, to plead with Hel for Baldur's return. Hel agreed, but only if every being in the cosmos wept for Baldur. While most creatures wept, one giantess, suspected to be Loki in disguise, refused, sealing Baldur's fate in the underworld. If even one creature refused to cry, did Baldur deserve to stay in Hell? Comment your thoughts. Should the fate of the gods have hinged on a single tear? Baldur's death marked the beginning of the gods' downfall. With his light extinguished, darkness began to seep into Asgard. The sorrow of Odin, Thor, and the other gods grew, knowing that the peaceful days of Asgard were coming to an end. This tragedy foreshadowed the chaos that Loki, along with Fenrir and Jormungandr, would unleash during Ragnarok. Baldur's untimely death not only represented the fragility of life in Norse mythology, but also the unavoidable fate awaiting the gods. As the shadow of Ragnarok loomed larger, the Norse gods prepared for the final battle, knowing their days of glory were numbered. After Baldur's tragic death, the Norse gods sought justice against Loki, whose treachery had brought about the beloved god's downfall. As Loki's role in the chaos became undeniable, the gods, led by Odin and Thor, vowed to punish him for his betrayal. With the approach of Ragnarok looming ever closer, the gods knew they had to contain Loki's disruptive power. Loki tried to evade capture by transforming into a salmon and hiding in a river, but the gods were relentless. Thor, using his immense strength, finally caught Loki and dragged him back to Asgard to face his punishment. The gods then devised a gruesome sentence that reflected the seriousness of his crimes. They bound Loki in a cave deep beneath the earth, using the entrails of his own son to secure him. As part of this cruel fate, the gods placed a venomous serpent above Loki's head, its venom dripping onto his face, causing unbearable agony. Loki's wife, Sigyn, remained loyal, standing by her husband's side. She held a bowl to catch the serpent's venom, but whenever she had to empty it, the venom dripped directly onto Loki's face, causing him to writhe in pain. His violent convulsions shook the earth, causing earthquakes across Midgard. This constant torment was Loki's punishment for his betrayal of Baldur and the gods of Asgard. While the gods could temporarily contain Loki's destructive nature, they could not escape the fate he represented. His role in Ragnarok, along with the inevitable destruction of the Norse gods, was sealed by the fates, despite the gods' best efforts to prevent it. The Twilight of the Gods, known as Ragnarok, marked the inevitable end of the cosmos in Norse mythology. It was foretold that this cataclysmic event would bring about the destruction of the Norse gods, their enemies, and the entire world, casting a shadow over the future of Asgard and Midgard. The signs of Ragnarok began with the arrival of Fimbul Winter, a long and brutal winter that lasted for 3 years without the warmth of summer. The world descended into chaos as families and clans turned against each other, and even the bonds between gods and men were tested. The day of Ragnarok had arrived, and the final battle between the Norse gods and the forces of chaos was set in motion. As the signs foretold in ancient prophecies unfolded, the realm of Asgard braced for war. Odin, the All-Father, knew this day was coming, and he gathered the gods, preparing them for the battle that would determine the fate of the world. The Bifrost, the rainbow bridge connecting Asgard to the other realms, shattered under the weight of the approaching armies. Loki, now free from his bonds, led the charge of the Jotuns, bringing with him his monstrous children. Fenrir, the giant wolf destined to kill Odin, and Jormungandr, the world serpent, who would face Thor in a deadly encounter. The giants of Jotunheim and the fire demons from Muspelheim, led by the fearsome Surtur, marched to bring destruction to the gods and their world. Odin, mounted on his 8-legged horse Sleipnir, led the gods into battle alongside his son Thor, the god of thunder. Fenrir, whose jaws stretched from the heavens to the earth, broke free from his bonds and charged towards Odin. The All-Father, knowing his fate, confronted the giant wolf in a battle of strength and will. Despite his wisdom and power, Odin was devoured by Fenrir, as the prophecy had long foretold. However, Odin's death was not in vain, for his son Vidar, driven by vengeance, tore Fenrir apart with his bare hands, avenging his father's death. As the gods fought bravely, Loki engaged in a deadly duel with Heimdall, the guardian of Asgard. The two were equally matched, and in the end, both fell to each other's blows, their mutual destruction symbolizing the collapse of the divine order. Meanwhile, Freyr, the god of fertility and peace, faced off against Surtur, the fire giant who would ignite the final flames of Ragnarok. Freyr, without his sword, sacrificed long ago for love, fought valiantly but was ultimately slain by Surtur's fiery blade. As the battle raged on, the world began to unravel. The sky darkened, the earth trembled, and the seas rose. The final clash between the gods and their enemies signaled the end of an era, with the realms of Midgard, Asgard, and Jotunheim facing the impending flames of destruction. As the final battle of Ragnarok unfolded, one of the most anticipated confrontations was that between Thor and his arch-nemesis, Jormungandr, the world serpent. If you're enjoying this powerful journey through the fall of the Norse gods, make sure to subscribe to Best of History and Mythology, hit the like button, and turn on the notification bell. Thor, the god of thunder, wielded his legendary hammer, Mjolnir, prepared to face the creature whose existence threatened the very balance of Midgard and Asgard. Jormungandr, the massive serpent that encircled Midgard, rose from the ocean depths, causing massive tidal waves that engulfed the land. His venomous breath poisoned the sky and sea, signaling the beginning of the end. Thor, undeterred by the chaos, charged at the serpent with thunder roaring behind him, knowing that their battle was destined to be fatal for both. The clash between Thor and Jormungandr was epic, shaking the realms to their core. With each strike of Mjolnir, Thor battered the serpent's massive coils, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. Jormungandr retaliated, lashing out with his fangs dripping venom, which fell like rain upon the earth, killing all it touched. The battle raged on, with the world serpent wrapping itself around Thor, tightening its grip in an attempt to crush the god of thunder. In one final, desperate strike, Thor unleashed the full power of Mjolnir upon Jormungandr's head, shattering the serpent's skull and finally slaying the beast. However, as the prophecy foretold, Thor had been poisoned by Jormungandr's venom during the battle. Though victorious, the god of thunder staggered only 9 steps before succumbing to the poison coursing through his veins, collapsing on the battlefield and sealing his fate. Thor killed the serpent but died moments later. Was his sacrifice worth it? Let us know. Would you choose victory, even if it meant your end? The death of Thor marked the loss of one of Asgard's greatest defenders, and with his fall, the inevitable destruction of the world drew even closer. The battle between Thor and Jormungandr not only symbolized the end of an era, but also highlighted the inescapable fate of the Norse gods and the onset of Ragnarok's final destruction. When thunder fell, the sky wept, and the gods braced for the final hour. Thanks for watching, and see you in episode 4 here on Best of History and Mythology, where destiny will finally be fulfilled.